All right, being 6:30, I will call the Building Reuse Committee to order. First thing on the agenda is taking the roll call. Suzanne Clarkman.
Present.
Michelle Feeney.
Present.
Dennis Kelly here. Odette Kent.
Present.
Jamie McGalvey.
Here.
Paul Maloney.
Here.
Tricia Romano is not here.
I am here.
Oh, she is here. Look at that. That's stuck in at the one. JR.
Here.
Suzanne Kelly.
Yeah.
All right, next thing on the is the approval of minutes. Thank you, Serby, for getting both of those done. Unless anyone has any issues, I'd like to do it as have someone make a motion for approval of both. So moved.
Second.
All right, second.
Second.
The second from Michelle, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Yeah.
All right, we're moving right along. Okay, so next on the agenda is the review of the community input survey. I just want to come out and start, I've sorted it in many different ways, the way it comes out of the survey monkey. And then I took all the comments, try to sort those as label them based on what they were saying and sort them so we could see it that way. So I filled you guys with a lot of data over the past 2 weeks, just different ways to look at it. One of the things I want to point out is I received a call from the senior center. One of the groups that are interested in the building were helping the seniors fill out their surveys. So they were asked to stop so that they could hand out surveys, but they can't tell them how to fill it out and what to write. So that was stopped. So that we input everything anyway, and that data is in here. But when you look at the comments, you can see the exact same words over and over in some of these, so you know that that's people doing repetitive things or logging into multiple pieces of equipment. So this could have been a useful tool. It still is in the sense that you can see all the different things people wanted, but unfortunately the numbers are skewed because people chose to coach people or fill in handouts. At least on the electronic version, you can only do it from every electronic device you can come to, but on the paper you could keep filling them out. So the data could be skewed, but there's a lot of information that's probably important that we can all review and that we can share with the select board. But I just wanted to share that because it was an event at the senior center that happened. And I won't put a name to the group, but I thought people should know. So after looking at the survey in so many different ways, first the way it comes out of the system after everything's uploaded. Question one, are you a Wilmington resident? 93% of the people that filled out this survey were Wilmington residents. Question number two, do you believe this Buzzell School, the former senior center or School Street, should be saved or repurposed or torn down? On the survey, again, this is both the written and the online. 62% of the people said save the Buzzell, repurpose. 34% said tear it down. 4% said they'd have no opinion. Question number three: if you selected save, repurpose, how do you think best could be reused? So 21.8% of the people said it's a town department use only. 50% of the people said community groups, nonprofits or private. Other was 27.6%. And that's it on that one. And then question four shows you all the comments that came on the online version of it, or after everything was entered into it. And so it was difficult to look at. So then you have your four other handouts where I took each question with their comments. And I started reading them and I'd say, okay, someone's suggesting an art center, someone's suggesting a community center, someone's suggesting municipal use, parking lot, school department, Sons of Italy, green space, lease, WCTV, Sons of Italy. And we're going on there. But anyway, so I just, and use that. So I try to at least sort them so everybody could look at what they are. Could it be off on one or two of them? I could. But believe it or not, it took me about 4.5 hours to sort it and get it because it doesn't come, I can't download it right into it.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So,
It's a great help.
but I think it helps us all look at it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've had a chance to look at these different, renditions of the, survey. And if you have any input on what your thoughts are.
Well, I think, as part of our final, through you, Mr. Chairman, as part of our final report, we probably select like the top 3 or 4 categories from each of these questions. I think that in the spirit of transparency, we give all of this to the select.
Absolutely.
But as part of our report, I think we narrow it down, we put a final point on it and select the top 3 or 4 uses for each of these questions. Ultimately, the selectmen are gonna make the decision. It's our job to go and dig and get this data for them. So I don't think that we need to put you find a point on what these uses are. We just make them available to the selectmen.
Absolutely. We're gonna supply a ton of data points from everything we've done and the ways we've sliced this building up. So there's a lot of different ways they can look at it. There's a lot of information here. All this, Jamie started working on, and I thank him, started working on a report format to present it. Every handout we've had, everything we've shown out here tonight will be online by probably, I'd say Monday, because I'm out tomorrow and Friday. So probably Monday or Tuesday, I'll work with John O'Neill to get those up online so that everyone can see them and review them as well. But all this data will end up in the final report based on that.
That sounds great.
So, Jamie?
Mr. Chairman, as you're reviewing the results here, I would just want to point out question 3 and question 4. So question 3 does have an option for other if you didn't want to choose town department use for how you think it would best be reused or community groups, nonprofits. So there was an other option, and just to clarify, question 4 is to then further clarify if you were to select other. Just keep that in mind because there are some comments in question 4 as you dive into it that suggest community groups and also town department use. So just don't get skewed with what's within question 4 as the results, because really that's just specifically supposed to be what your other options specify.
Yeah, I mean, and even when I was trying to go through them, people are confused sometimes on what to enter, but I still try to sort it to the topic they meant.
And the graphs are almost identical too, from 3 to 4.
Exactly.
And the heading, so.
Yeah. And that's why I put the graph on it, just so you get an idea of where each topic fell.
So I guess, Mr. Chairman, for you again, if it's worth pointing out that the graphs in both question 4 and question 5, youth center scored within the top 3.
Yeah.
And parking also scored within the top 3 if we were to tear it down.
Yeah.
Youth centers, I'm bringing that up because youth center is not something we heard we may have heard it once or twice, but I don't feel like we heard a very strong response, at least verbally, to the public comment process before the survey for that.
Yeah, I think it came out strong in the survey, and not really a large topic before that.
I think that is good that you're mentioning that, because I think that makes sense when you think about technology and surveys and who fills it out and who sends it to everyone. So just keep in mind the method of the survey and the results. We had certain people that showed up in person for all the meetings, and then when it was the survey, there was a different result. Just keep in mind the technology.
Yeah.
And again, skewing the results of the survey.
And I think we've done a good job as a committee trying to identify every avenue to look at it. So these are all great different viewpoints of similar data, but some things have changed.
There was somebody that came in, a resident, that
Yes.
mentioned you center.
Yeah, the only ones, there wasn't like an overwhelming
Right,
crowd of that, you know, it seemed like mostly the organizations, like WCTV
Yeah.
was here last time, they couldn't be here tonight. But they came and said why they feel they have to do the building. But obviously the crowd's a lot smaller than we go forward with trying to finalize the scorecard. But I think, you know, you've heard youth center around town, whether it's that building, some other building or somewhere. It's something that the town will now see that people want.
right.
Now, yes, sir.
And I just wanted to jump off of what Jenny was saying about parking. If you drill down into some of these comments, and we appreciate all the comments, but some of them just may be misinformed, okay? So some of the comments are parking for school kids and town events. That site, the way it sits right now, when the new town hall is completed, we'll have plenty of parking for the school kids, for the staff at the town hall. We'll have plenty of parking with extra spaces to do, okay? Another comment is parking for town hall, it's covered. Parking for town hall, school admin people, that's covered. So we need to take into consideration the fact that the site already accommodates all the parking that we need, and that may not be something that we want to really press on, okay? And when we talk about, I know we've talked about elections before, I think that's a non-starter for me, because our elections are on Saturdays. And when we have to have an election, that parking lot's wide open. And once every 4 years, when we have an election on a Tuesday, you know what? The town can ask the school department to tell the seniors not to bring their cars to school that day.
Right.
So I don't think parking for 1 day every 4 years is a reason
Criteria.
to stop this project. If this building is deemed viable, if after everything we do, this building is deemed viable, I don't think parking is an issue at all. If it's not deemed viable and we, as a committee, say, hey, the scorecard says it needs to be torn down, then that's what it is. But I don't think parking is an issue at all. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in.
Well, keep in mind, like, one of the things that was towards the end of the school year here, when it was busy, with all the construction staff on site, they were trying to open up more of the parking lot. That whole back parking lot was full.
Yeah.
And once you fill that parking lot, it's very tight, difficult.
Yeah.
Because I have to pull in it every day. But it's a great point to think about. But again, we're gonna supply the data point of
Exactly.
parking. We're not gonna say,
But in that report, we should make a notation that the site accommodates all the parking that we need on a daily basis.
yes, with that parking lot, as a municipal parking lot, it fits the needs of the town.
Just on that, and I don't disagree, in theory, I know the numbers show that there were spare spots, I think somewhere around 20.
Yeah.
And parking is its own category on the scorecard, so we'll have a chance to weigh in on that, but I would want to remind the committee, I do think there is slight impact in the winter. From someone who's responsible for snow removal over the last 20 years, the Swain School during a heavy snowstorm frequently lost spaces. Depending on the amount of snow, an 18-inch snowfall, we would have spaces in the back being lost by snow storage. So that is a little bit of a concern of mine. I wouldn't say that there is no impact at all. I would urge the committee to consider that. Can't quantify the number of spaces we may lose. Depends on the storm, depends on the winter. There's been some terrible winters in this town, and it could impact them.
One of the things to keep in mind, right now, the islands aren't in, the binder code all went down for the 4th of July, then after that's gone, the islands will go in, which will reduce some of the open area, but the space counts will still be there. But the numbers I shared before are based off on a daily use, for parking. And then, when you bring in consultants, every day there's consultants, residents and people. Susan?
One thing that we didn't in parking that we should have was the traffic situation coming out of the senior center is treacherous. There was that people in the bottom because you can start clean line of sight down the road there.
Yeah.
And the parking is also problematic. So if it's time to maintain the building, I think there should be some sort of review of getting in there of the parking.
Yeah, there's definitely, some design that would have to happen there to meet all needs. When I was in the building, in the new town hall today, I walked out where the receiving area is, and I'm not far from the building. So, again, people will be rolling that around on pallets and the snow, the slush and everything else. So those are all things to look at. But I have a different ability to walk the property like everyone else, so I see those things firsthand. But I walked around with the floor plan today, looking in every office, taking pictures for the different departments so they could see what the areas look like, and then I went the back door because they're trying to figure out where I'm receiving paper and products and all that, just to get an idea. But so
One more thing on parking, so I just want to read this into the record, okay? So from a memo that we have on this committee, town hall employees, school department employees, students, residents, auditors, consultants, et cetera, should take up 286 spots. When the town hall is completed, we will have a total of 324 spots, at least almost 40 extra spaces.
Including the back park.
Including the back parking lot.
Right.
And that could even accommodate voting, because I don't see more than 40 cars coming in for a vote at a time. So depending on how many precincts are voting. So I, like I said, just to keep things into perspective, I don't think parking is going to be a huge deal for this.
All right, so any other comments from the school department? I mean, survey. All right, so I do have on here public comments. If anyone had something before, no, I'm sorry, fill out the scorecard for us, didn't public comment, I apologize. So we started with the scorecard as a group. You know, I've talked to a couple people offline thinking, you know, when we just did the OPM, Honors Project Manager Selection Committee for the school project to find a new OPM. The 5 people on the committee filled out their scorecards separately. Then we tallied them and did an average. So that's one way these can be filled out, or do we sit there and talk about it and put down one score? So if everybody was to fill out the scorecard numbers themselves as we talk about them, and then we tally the total number and divide it by the 9, that would give us the average. Right, and then that's the average score. I don't know how people feel about the best way to fill this out, but I'd be open to either way.
I'll just make a comment on that. That was not the original intent, I believe, when we did the card, but I'm certainly open to doing it that way. I think if we were to take the rest of tonight to go over the scores and make a motion and have the motion changed and finally agree on a score for 8 or 9 different people, we might be here all night or 2 or 3 more meetings. So I think maybe the most efficient way to do it would be to do it
Each
separate.
fill it out,
You
and
know?
then you guys tally the results.
Yes, so we'll read off the, I'm gonna make Jamie do it, but we'll read off each topic. We can volunteer, you know, you can volunteer. So, and then we can talk about it, and then each person put the score they feel is applicable to it. We'll collect them all, and then we can do the averages and get them out to everybody. I think that might be the easiest way instead of going back and forth.
I absolutely, I was surprised we were trying to all hit the same number as a group.
So I do have one question on that. So the card you have in front of you omits condition number 9, which I believe we already voted on as a committee. I have it in my notes as an agreed upon score of 2.
Yes, I heard that also.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
do we just leave questions 4 and 9?
I would think we would leave those 2 where they are because we voted on that together. The reason that wasn't in there was because I've been trying to keep track of everything. I thought I made copies of the scorecard for tonight, and I didn't, so I had to make them when I got here. And the copy I had was not with 9 filled out. So we originally said that because of the building is connected to the sewer line from the building, we voted as a 10. We originally said that on question number 9, accessibility, that it was a 2. So if we all agree that we're fine with those 2 numbers, we can start talking about each category and then put on our own score. And then from there, I think it might be the fastest way to do this.
Are you looking for a motion to do
I
that?
just have a question.
Sure.
Do we remember why we went with a 2 instead of a 3?
Yeah, there's so much accessibility purpose wise between the floors, the thresholds, the bathrooms, the doorknobs, the kitchen. So that it's heavily ADA compliance. And Susan, I don't know if I'm saying this right, if you agree, but you were in that building for many years. I think I categorized every topic.
And what would be a 0, just so I can compare?
I guess to me, in a lot of ways, the fact is the ramp going in is technically not ADA compliant. It's a ramp, but they can get in. So in a lot of ways, I guess that we went back and forth. I think it's a 0 or 1,
Okay.
or we sat here as a committee and went back and forth and we come up with 2. But everything, if you meet ADA compliance, like once you're in the building and you're in the hallway, you've got a step down either way to get out. So no matter which way you go out the building any other way, in case of emergency, you need to do a step down or roll down off the step. In the bathrooms, like I said, there's a bunch of issues code wise where like that massive steam heater, which gets very hot, is right next to the toilet. So someone in a wheelchair trying to get in on and off could lean against and burn themselves. There needs to be a wider area for them to do the turnaround if you change it in the code. So, that's the topic, I think, of where we were.
And can we just recap, also on the upgrade, why is the upgrade to the HVAC electric with heat pumps triggered a code compliance?
Because once you start going down the list of, my copy, once you start going down and do the ADA compliance you're at, for the different things, you start triggering code. So to upgrade the floors to 112, the miscellaneous interior doors at 5,000, the bathroom accessibility 40,000, the main entrance accessibility 20,000, the kitchen upgrade 50,000. Right there, you hit 30%, which now triggers, which the heating system needs to replace as well because it's on borrowed time. That steam system.
Right, but
does that-
I'm asking, so you have these highlighted in yellow.
Yep.
And you have triggered code compliance.
Yep.
I really don't think that upgrading the kitchen to commercial standards is code compliance. We
Well-
don't know why you have to.
Commercial standards might be the wrong words, but like someone's supposed to be able to roll up in a wheelchair to the sink. And
All right, assuming that you would have the general public in there or use it as a kitchen. But I mean, I guess $50,000 to make it so somebody.
okay, even if you take that out with the
I just
the
don't
heat
see.
and everything. Again, I was trying to sort of like per request of the committee and a couple of the selecting that were in the crowd to separate it, but this really is what would happen. And once you start working on bathrooms, you start doing plumbing. Once you start doing plumbing, you bring in that cost. And like I said, the kitchen itself, to meet code compliance, which would be ADA compliant for anyone in a wheelchair to use, it is not. So that's why it's on. So even if I take that off, I'm still over the 30%, which
Right, so well, I don't know, I mean, I just,
we can definitely agree to disagree.
all these numbers here on the bottom part, the fire suppression system, the upgrade electrical, the upgrade to HVAC, electric with heat pumps, and the kitchen upgrade, I really feel are like inflated numbers. I hate to say it, but that's how I feel.
You can fail, we can agree to disagree. I went to an expert and that they price things out for the town all the time. We do prevailing wage and, prevailing wage is absolutely different than private numbers.
I guess what Ms. Sullivan is trying to say is, how does the upgrade of HVAC, electric and heat pumps fall into the ADA compliance
It's
category?
something that needs to be done already.
But
Okay,
it's
but
not
that's
ADA.
not an.
No,
ADA thing.
but I
That
didn't-
could be a 5-year capital.
That says triggered, but I'm saying, once you start going down the list, and then you add the heat. So once you add the ADA compliance, maybe I worded it wrong.
Yeah.
And then the heat,
What if we take that out and add that to the 5-year capital plan? So
Right.
something that doesn't need to be done to open the building.
It
I know it's on
changes the numbers
borrowed time.
dramatically.
I personally disagree with it. I've tried to keep that thing running for 12 years.
Yep.
And we've done it, and it needs replacement.
The other thing I would say
And to
is,
do the ADA compliance in order to bring the correct type of heat into the bathrooms.
Yeah.
I had to eliminate those radiators, which now I'm touching the heating pipes that are 30 years old. Which I already have patches and everything else on, so.
as far as the kitchen, we're all gonna score this the way we're gonna score this, right? But as far as the kitchen goes, I mean, what if we just took the kitchen equipment out of there so that it's not a kitchen at this point in time? And that could be something
Hey, take that
that goes
50,000
on
off.
a 5-year capital improvement plan along with the roof and everything else.
But again, there's gonna be a cost removing that kitchen, patching the walls,
Yeah.
doing all that. So, those are,
And
that's an option.
I don't mind getting past that 30%, but I don't want the price tag to appear as though it's the price tag to open this building is going to appear as though it's more than what the building is worth.
Right, so the problem
It
is one of the most expensive items on this whole list is the upgrade to HVAC electric with heat pumps. And that item, really skews the rest of the ADA compliance, and it's just not. It
Well,
may
it
be something that you wanna do in the future and part of the capital plan, but it's clearly not part of ADA.
I'm not, that's why it says triggered compliance. It's not, any triggered compliance is anything you need to do. So I need to upgrade the heat, which is the 250,000 is 50% of the value of the building almost. So
Right.
that triggers it by itself.
So what code, so I guess
So-
show me what code that it triggers.
There's a 30% cost of the building, and you have to upgrade it at the other,
Well,
bring
we
everything
have-
else to the type.
The yellow, I guess where I guess I have my problem is that on this paper, we have things that are highlighted in yellow.
Yep.
And I go over and look to see what that means, it says triggered code compliance is highlighted in yellow. And I'm trying to understand why one of the most expensive items on this list, which could skew the viability of the building, is for the heat pumps.
If
So I'm
I did
asking-
no ADA compliance, I have to upgrade that heat system. In fact, upgrading that heat system for the entire building to something that fits all the needs of the building, is 250,000. So if I don't do any ADA compliance, I'm 250,000. But I got it designed by an architect, engineer firm, and then, go out to public bid, come back in. If I just do heating alone, I'm at 250.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the code you're referring to in that respect would be the building code.
Yes.
Actually,
Yes, all of that is.
Right, so why does that trigger a building code? Because I don't understand.
I have to replace the heat. The heat has to be upgraded no matter what. To
Right,
open
but
that
does it
building
have to
again,
be done in order to
Yes.
open up the building?
yes,
Why?
because it was barely hanging on at the end. And that's one of the things, we were, if we had built the senior center, we would have replaced that entire heating system because of that. Now, once I start touching, the radiators throughout the building and the bathrooms and things for ADA compliance, all those steam pipes, which you want to go away from steam, so that's where electric comes in. This code is going, trying to think of the code, carbonless, basically fuels, which puts everything electric. That's why the new senior center is electric. That's why the new town hall is electric. That's why the new school will be electric and no fossil fuels. So that's where that number comes from. So you're going to upgrade it to meet what's gonna happen between now and
Those
2030.
those are for new buildings. I don't think for rehabbing an old building that you have to follow that.
Actually, you do. Because going forward, that's what code is gonna mandate. This code is mandating to move forward. That's why there is nothing being designed today. That's why we not design the senior center
But
with
there-
fossil fuels.
I believe that we had talked about before that the exemptions. Did we get a follow-up on that? What the exemptions would be to the state's green, whatever, I can't even remember what it's called, the green initiative for heat pumps.
As far as,
Yeah, there's some exemptions. I mean, if you're rehabbing an old building, a municipality, I don't think that you need.
we're not the average old building, we are a municipality, so we fall under different things. Jamie and I on a daily basis can't do things like the average homeowner or average private company can do.
I understand.
So, because of that, that's why we do this. And again, that's why I wouldn't try to design a heating system on my own. I'd hire a company like Socotec or, Left Field or one of the other companies that we've dealt with. And, Johnson Roberts, and they would help design what meets today's codes and the future codes. Because at some point, we're gonna be forced as a community to upgrade this. At some point, Jamie's gonna be forced to go to electric dump trucks and plows. That's coming sooner than you believe, before 2030, they're already mandating it. So when you look at these things, you have to address that now.
Mr. Chairman, to help others understand it, and again, everyone's gonna score it the way they wish. From my perspective, I'm sitting next to the public building superintendent who's in charge of creating a 5-year capital plan for the town. And whether or not there's a trigger for code compliance, one of my biggest concerns would be to invest other money in this building because it's going to be used by whoever, could be a community group, could be WCTV, could be the Sons of Italy, we don't know yet. But say it was WCTV, they have temperature sensitive equipment. hundreds of thousands of dollars presumably worth of equipment that has to be in there, 6 months of the year that heat has to be on for these investments to pan out. And so I would see this as a risk if we were to not upgrade the heat in year 1 or year 2. To make it a place that's usable for when we decide to go in there. So regardless of code, I would say that we want to keep that in mind as well.
I'm just gonna push back a little bit on that, only because I also think that if there was to be somebody that would lease the building from the town, that you could actually work out potential sharing of costs. And we also had some conversations about the
That's fine, I'll check out the comment.
But I mean, I think what we're doing is we're getting a little bit too in the weeds on why that you want. All I want to do is understand why the heat pumps are triggering full compliance and not part of future improvement.
Because it has to be done now. It's not part of the capital improvement, say, let's do it in 5 years.
Okay, but that's.
If that building is safe for municipal use, I will put it in my capital plan before it's opened again to replace that heat.
Right, okay, so that's a different topic than code compliance, I guess is what I'm
Well, I
saying.
guess what he's saying is that embarking on that endeavor gets you to that 30% and triggers all the ADA stuff that has to be done.
The ADA has to happen no matter what. This has to happen no matter what. So those two things are gonna happen no matter what.
Right.
So we can go around and round, but no matter what happens, those two things have to happen. ADA compliance has to happen.
Understood.
Right,
And
I
heating
agree.
has to happen.
I agree with that. I'm
So
just not sure I agree with that.
2 things. First, I can attest to the fact that the heating and cooling system will seem something is helpful. It was so neat, it was ridiculous. I had to stand on here to turn things off. And it just really freezing cold and really hot. And the other thing is that one of my concerns about this building as a whole is that when you start opening things up, you start finding little problems. What I didn't know was when. Because we haven't even addressed the fact that we just spent some reports. And I took a look at the I had one the other day, and we took a page out, you know, there's the paint there.
There's definitely, by the age of the building, there's definitely lead paint at some point, was used in that building. There'd have to be testing on, any type of sealant, any type of glue, any type of, flooring to have testing done, whether there's asbestos or not. When they simply looked at it, they made an estimate of $40,000, I think it was, for abatement as an estimate, and then they were gonna go from there. So I don't even have abatement on here as a topic, because again, I could break it down 8 different ways to keep adding numbers, and I wasn't trying to do that. But I know from living with that building and working on it for 12 years, we were fortunate to have some amazing people on staff that could be over there at any time to get it running again. And then every year we're like, well, we're building a new senior center, let's not do it. And last year was very difficult. The last year was very difficult to keep it even running. There's patches on all the steam pipes in the basement, that helped us, with the steam leaks in the basement. Every time you have one of those, you create possibility of mold and other issues, so you address them right away. So, that's really what it is. So code compliance really comes down to once you start doing any of these, you hit 30% value of the property, it triggers all the other things. So sprinklers, once you do heating, it triggers sprinklers. Once you do ADA compliance, and then you get the plumbing and all that, you trigger code compliance, which triggers all those things. So that's the reason I put it in yellow. It wasn't to deceive anyone or make it seem like a larger number. I was trying to get down from the 1.2 million. And then say, okay, replacement ceilings, yeah, unless there's something falling down, we can do that as a capital improvement. Replacing windows, we could do it as a capital improvement. Wall insulation, capital improvement. Upgrade lighting, capital improvement. Plumbing repairs, the plumbing repairs are gonna trigger, technically I probably should move them up, but once you start doing work for the kitchen, the bathrooms, some of that plumbing's gonna start getting triggered, but yeah, it's interpretation, but you know, like I said, 12 years ago, before I started working for the town, I worked for private companies doing building management. And I thought I was gonna come to the town and just bring what I knew there to the town. I know how much this costs and how much that costs. It's a completely different world to follow Mass General Law 149 and get buildings built and done. All sat on the, I don't want to speak for you, but you sat on the permanent building committee for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And it's not as simple as, hey, I want to build a building.
Yeah.
We would have built these buildings a lot faster. We didn't have to follow all these other things to protect the town. So, so again, we're gonna score them the way we're gonna score them. But that was the thought process. That's why I did it in yellow. And that's why I brought it tonight, was per request of many people. This will be posted online again by Monday or Tuesday when I get back from work. Back to one.
Thank you for putting that together.
Mr. Chairman, are you looking for a motion at this point, since we just discussed item number 6, modified the facility condition index, which relates to the building?
I'm sorry, one more time. The owl stopped.
Okay. You good?
I just clicked on, I don't see the owl. Oh, it's lights on. There it is. It was recording voice, but not. There you go.
All right. So, Mr. Chairman, my question was, are you looking for a motion at this point to have the committee consider scoring item number 6, since we're on the topic of repairs, or?
We could, I mean, we just had a long, lengthy discussion of it, and unless someone has more discussion of it or questions.
I would just, I guess I'll save this question, for a discussion if there is a motion.
So are we not gonna score this on our own? Are we gonna try and score this committee or just that one that scores the committee?
But I'm saying, I think we're gonna talk about each topic.
Yeah.
And then we score it, and see if everyone agrees.
Are we scoring it in public here, or would it be a homework assignment?
I'd say score it here, and then we take the homework assignment home to do the averages, and then share it with the group, and then put the report together based on those averages, and then come back in the following meeting to share what those are. We're looking for data, so this isn't gonna be the final decision of what it is. All it's gonna show is what the average of the group was.
Yeah.
I can look, correct me if I'm wrong. So if we go through this tonight, get it done, and then you and I can formulate the data, come up with the average, put it into the report, and the next meeting, we share the report with the group, hopefully before it, that we would suggest supplying to the select board and town manager. And then people have time to review all of it. And if there's edits or suggestions, maybe they can be checked done beforehand. If not, maybe it's a matter of, revising it afterwards. But my goal would be to complete this tonight, allowing us to put the report together. But
Can you explain the equation that you have in the scoring guidelines with number 6? What that means?
what's that? Yeah, she withdrew a motion. So, Jane, you want to just run through it?
Sure. So the facility condition index is something that is a universal equation when you're talking about asset management. That's not something we made up. It's an actual thing. We call it a modified facility index in this case because it's the ratio of total repairs over the next 5 years, which is typically how we handle our capital improvement plan, rather than just the ratio of total repairs over 1 year improvements. So as a reminder, the committee voted this scoring already, item number 6, to be the ratio of total repairs over the next 5 years to the current building value. So in other words, the when you divide total repairs by the value of the building, which on record is $546,500. And so the answer there, if it is a ratio greater than 1, the score would be 0. The understanding there is that it costs more to repair over the next 5 years than it's worth. A ratio of less than 1 but greater than 1/2 would be a ratio of anywhere between 1 and 5. And a ratio of 0.5 or less would be a score of 6 to 10.
All right, so what would you score that, Jamie?
Well, the way I
lost me in the math there.
So, sure. The way I look at these repairs, and there's some debate on what is required, but the way we did the scorecard and voted on it is the repairs over the next 5 years is part of a 5-year plan. So that being said, without doing too much math in my head, the value is $546,000. So if the addition of any of these items on the right, I would say within the yellow, that's how I interpret this, was more than $546,500, so the ratio is greater than 1. I would give this score a 0. Okay. I would remind people that even if you knock out some of these items that are controversial, such as maybe upgrading the electrical, The fire suppression system, I was under the understanding that that had to be done regardless, but even if I'm lying there. ADA compliance is a major factor for me. And I would take the word of the public building superintendent, who is suggesting that the heat be replaced there. So that being said, the value is less than the total cost of repair over the next 5 years. I would assign that as sort of zero.
And that's where it gets really difficult for me because I don't agree with the numbers for all the repairs.
Yes. I,
So I'm gonna have to do my own math and do it in the box, and so just to show you where I'm coming from,
So is there a motion on the floor?
just saying.
We didn't do a motion.
Okay,
With Susan withdrew hers. But,
should committee members just score that?
so I think we talk about them, we score them, and again, we can agree to disagree, we're never all gonna agree.
Yep.
And each person has their own reason of why they're gonna score something.
Yep.
And, someone could score that a 10, and for that personally, I don't think that's a score for it, but, you know, I have a little more in-depth knowledge, so I'm gonna score it based on my experience,
Yeah.
you're gonna base it on your experience. So you being part of the current building committee, seeing why you built the new senior center, being in it, and the tours we've done, your score will definitely be different than mine.
Yes.
Suzanne, let me know what your math is, because I want to see it.
Well, I think you do your.
I can do it myself, but I think it's.
I just feel like there's some things here that really skew the numbers and make it look like, I said it at the last meeting at the $1.19 million that I don't necessarily feel comfortable with those numbers. And
Which is fine.
some of the repair things, and I mean, it's not like I haven't said it. And I'm just looking at it, and when, you know, you start doing the ratios, and if you start to minus things like the roof replacement, which is $300,000, is the most expensive item on this. You know, and I'm not saying that it doesn't have to be done eventually, but should it be part of the 5-year capital improvement plan? Should it maybe is a 10-year capital improvement plan, or 6-year, or, you know?
I'm doing a 9,000 square foot roof in this summer, and I'm spending $230,000.
And I also, the other thing I did is I took the total repairs and I did, you know, whatever the cost was, per square footage, and I came up with like $138. So even at per square foot, so even at this number of $1.191 million, it's like $138 per square foot. I think we spent something like $300 something per square foot on the new senior center. Well, I mean, I'm just saying, even at this number, it's $138 per square foot. I mean, you can check my math, that's what I came up with.
It's important that you are comfortable with the number you scored at, so if that's, you're gonna look at it and interpret it the way you want, put your score down. Jan?
I would also make the point, not just for this project, but for future projects, and for a committee that's going to be looking at other buildings as well. I would be open to reviewing anyone's estimate. If you're uncomfortable, if anyone's uncomfortable with an estimate that one of us brings to the table, I don't think any of us would be, you know, closed-minded to say that we're only allowing the public building superintendent to bring quotes. Granted, that's his area of expertise, I understand that.
But keep in mind, this includes design, which has to be done, public bidding, and the payment of someone helped do public bidding, the whole process, commissioning throughout that process and completion of that process. So, and prevailing wage and everything, every aspect from start to finish. Person sweeping the floor gets prevailing wage. The person doing anything on that property, it's the town's decision, and it's Mass General Law to use prevailing wage. Even if something falls in an exemption of prevailing wage, which I believe is only a couple things, there's only 2 categories. The town, to avoid lawsuits, does prevailing wage and everything.
So we're gonna score it now.
Yep, so you score what you feel is comfortable.
Okay.
And then again, the average of all 9 people might be, or 8 people might be different.
Mr. Chairman, you start at number 1 and go down the
Yeah,
list.
so we end up on that topic because it's
Yeah.
staffing needs. So again, going back to how often is this building used, what's it used for? Per union contract, I will have to put an employee attached to that building. I don't have an option, it's a contractual obligation.
Mr. Chairman, is that a full-time employee?
That would end up being a full-time employee.
Can I ask a question of clarification, clarification on a comment? And
Sure.
the $500,000 assessed value, we all live there, we know the property is worth 10 times that. Is that ratio only based on the assessed value? Or is it-
The data we have is how we will assess it. So just like your house isn't assessed for exact value of your house, I think it's 60% or something.
But even at 60%, that's not.
So just as a reminder, Mr. Romano, we talked about this at the first or second meeting where we were going to rely on the assessor card. The value of $546,500 was what's referred to as the replacement cost, new less depreciation on the assessor card. That means value when they went to assess this building at what it could be reconstructed as it is, not necessarily brand new to new standards like the Senior Center on Main Street. But in theory, if they were to reconstruct the building as it sat there, depreciated. So that's why that figure here is low, but we're comparing apples to apples when we look at all buildings.
But is that the number that the law requires you to mark back, down to the 30% threshold to trigger on?
It's the appraised value
Current,
Of the bill,
of the bill.
not about.
That's a good clarification, sorry, Mr. Chairman, for you. That number does not include the value of the land, that's just the structure.
thank you.
I just had a question about one, right?
Yes.
So that, you said that requires a full-time staff.
So, and a full-time staffer, because the assumption is we're going to use this. If you say the reuse center, we'll be there to clean it, take care of it, and do all the general maintenance. So,
That's an 8-hour shift.
yeah. Oh, again, it all depends on how many hours it runs. It might be a person and a half if it's gonna run all, if
But
they,
somebody has to be there that whole time.
because you have to unlock the building, make it safe, and then if people are coming and going.
How many staff do you have, or how many staff did you have at the arts center when the arts center was open?
The art center was a half person.
Okay, and how many staff do you have full-time at the library?
Full-time is one full-time person.
At the library, and they're there all day long?
Yeah, all that.
All night long.
So again, depending on what we determine the use, depends how much someone needs there. So say it became an activity center or some sort, and it was set up and break down the hall. I now need somebody on the other shift to break down, set up, and trash. So is it 2 people, is 1.5 people? I'm gonna go with the assumption of 1, figuring we're gonna run at least an 8-hour shift between night and day.
Okay. But is there a probability that it could be a half a person?
Contractually, no, but is it a possibility? I guess we could try to figure it out. Contractually,
I'm just trying to figure out
it.
the score.
Yes.
I would comment on that. If it's a half a person, it's still a full-time hire.
That's so, yeah.
So it would still be a 40-hour week employee, and the other half would be utilized presumably out somewhere else.
Yeah, possibly at the town hall itself.
Okay.
So I feel like with that question, if there's one full-time, how could we even have any different vote? Like if there's, are you saying, so for number 1, we're agreeing that it's 1 full-time person?
Contractually, I'll put the person, so assuming that we're gonna use this building. I don't have a spare person that'd say, hey, it's open for 2 hours now, stop what you're doing, going over there.
So
So
my-
that's contractually, I have to staff the building based on square footage.
Got it. So in other words, the highest that we can vote on that, or the highest number we can do for that would be 4. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
Or it be 1 to 4. So I was wondering, like, for the number 1, I wanted to make sure that what Dennis said, that if I was understanding it, that he said that space requires 1 full-time person. So I feel like I wanted to make sure that the highest we could go, because there's, no staff is 9 to 10 for. A part-time staff required is 5 to 8, and a full-time staff required is 1 to 4.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be clear that, like, I'd like to go higher, but if it's 1 to 4, we can't really go higher, right?
I mean, and that's why we,
But what scenario would I be able to do a higher mark for that?
I can
If
answer
it's
that.
leased,
Okay,
maybe,
thanks. What?
if it's leased.
That's
Do
what
we
I
need
need.
full-time staff there if the town leases it out?
keep in mind too, again, a lot of things have to happen when you talk about the word lease. The town doesn't
Yeah.
usually do that. The property for the parking is needed by the town. So how do you lease a building with no land around it?
Right.
So And it's not our responsibility to determine least and options.
It's not, but I mean, I thought that, that was part of the whole survey of reuse was to re.
It's gonna be in the report.
You could reuse it.
Yeah, we'll put it in the
I'm saying
report.
that's a done deal that we can't do that.
No, I'm saying, but I've got we were told, is there a municipal use? Was that what the town manager?
There are
said?
other considerations too, like zoning, et cetera, that may preclude the town from doing some of these things that showed up on the survey with this building.
I mean, one of the residents brought up the whole zoning thing, which was a great addition to our conversation. I posted on the website as part of it because it says that the R20 zone cannot have a membership club or anything like that. Could it be leased to WCTV? I guess, but our goal, our charge from the night, couple nights ago, or last meeting with Eric there was, is there a municipal use? So leasing really isn't a municipal use. It's an option for the town, but it's not a municipal use. That's my personal opinion. People may
Right, I
differ
mean,
from that.
which is fine, I mean, we all have our opinions, but I think that even if, you know, you wanted, say WCTV, like, are you saying that you don't, we shouldn't even consider, I mean, we.
They are not a town municipal.
And ask people these questions, and I'm just kind of curious why we're not thinking about that, I mean.
It was not our charge. Well, our charge is to get all that data, but our charge was to find if there's a municipal use for the building. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's what I was saying.
WCTV consider municipal use.
They are not municipal, they're not part of the town.
They used to, at least the Swain School years ago.
And if the town chooses to do something separate with them, that was not in our scope as far as saying, we're gonna supply the fact that Sons of Italy want it. WCTV wants it, the Arts Group wants it, this group, and the Arts Group really is, it's a community group in the town, but it's not a municipal use, it is, so you can almost battle on almost anything. So to me, a municipal use is a town department using it, and or running it for the use of the community.
Do you have somebody that is a full-time employee at the bookstore next door?
It's only open 6 hours, so the library person goes over and takes care of that. They really, don't have much need. They barely use any electricity and they barely use, any fuel. They turn the heat down, I wanna say 55 even, off the top of my head, and, they're only open, I think, Wednesdays for a few hours and Saturdays, a few hours.
Yeah, it says right here, like item number 6 is review possible uses of building and or land for municipal purposes. And then number 2 is investigate needs of town departments to determine if internal reuse is merited. So our charge really doesn't include like public groups.
Agreed, then we should score our card considering public use for municipal buildings.
And it's not to say that public use is out of the question. That's gonna be something for the selectmen to decide when they get there, right?
That's what I'm.
But number 7 does say evaluate all potential uses and make final reports of selectmen. So we can include, you know, community stakeholders, the results of the survey, what the residents would like to see done with that building. But I don't think we need to chew up the minutia on that stuff.
Right, so, yeah, I get it. I still think that, it's just kind of hard to score that only based on. And it's based on an assumption that it's just gonna be municipal use and only municipal use. So, and I think you should be clear based on the assumption that it's only municipal use. Because if it's based on an assumption that it's not municipal use, then we might have a different score. I guess what I'm saying.
But the charge of this
But the
committee.
question is based on the assumption that it's only municipal use.
Yes, and that's how we're supposed to score it, because that's our charge.
Right,
Our charge is-
but we should have that clarified.
Mr. Chairman, I think that goes to, Mrs. Feeney's question about. There's a range of 1 to 4, we've identified as a full-time staff. Maybe the best score you could give is a 4, with the assumption that. Potentially that full-time staff wouldn't be used for the entire time if it was, a private illustration. I would make the argument that.
But that gets us to 5 to 8.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, like, I honestly,
No.
I mean, at this point, with everything I've heard, I would do 5 to 8. Because we don't know what it's gonna be used for, so I don't feel comfortable that I guess I wanted to understand. Is it a rule in Hardin that it is a full-time staff, no matter what it's used for? Because then what's the point of even?
I have an ASME contract with the
When,
union.
when Dennis says contractually, I have to put a full-time person in.
Oh, that's what I mean, okay, so,
That's my go-to, so.
okay, so there's,
It's not an option for me.
so then we have no discussion on the first one, other than one to,
Well, yeah,
Wonderful.
so four being.
So,
If we're trying to, a museum
Okay.
and we're never gonna use it.
Yep.
It's different staffing than if there's gonna be a run on or different programs. Then I've got to address it and staff the building per contract.
So, okay, say for instance, it was, say.
I don't put any with the hand.
Say the arts council used it, is that a full-time employee?
If that was the only person that ever used it, it depends how many hours. Because when the outside was the other building.
Do 5 or 6 in that case, because we don't know, but
But
the
by
select
the-
would choose the art council.
but by the same token, another use that we haven't had in this town for a long time is a youth center. And there would be lots of people traipsing through there all day long, and that would require a full-time person, so we don't know.
Yeah.
It all comes down to how you want to interpret it to get your score.
Yeah,
so that's right, Mr. Chairman, so exactly, it is different, and that's why there's a range, and that's why there's.
but that would be a municipal use, a youth center would be a municipal use.
Right, and it would be, yeah, it would be a heavy use, but if you can also have a municipal use that's not a heavy use, where you wouldn't need full-time, somebody there full-time, I guess that's the thing, I mean, maybe you'd have to get somebody contractual, but maybe that person would share responsibilities, I can't imagine one person full-time at the Buzzell all day long.
But the distinction here is that how this affects the public buildings budget, and if a full-time hire needs to be made, even if only 15 hours a week of that 40 hours employee is dedicated to the seniors at the Buzzell. The payroll still has to be paid,
40, I have a 40-hour employee no matter what.
so that's. In my mind, you have scoring guidelines.
Yep.
So to me, it's a full-time employee, question is where it falls on the range. I believe that overtime could be triggered based on, depending on what it's used for. So for me, it would fall more on the low spectrum. Yeah. Somebody like this Feeney, perhaps it might fall on the higher spectrum.
Can we just, when we speak about the scoring of the scorecard in the report, can we just put a caveat in there that this is scored to municipal use?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the score could potentially change
And another use.
if it was used for some other type of public use. So just so the selectmen are aware of that. Does that make sense?
Sure. Again, tonight they think they have a meeting out there, but a lot of the meetings that we've had a pretty
Yeah.
good selecting response.
Yeah.
And so they're pretty aware of what's going on.
Okay.
And so when we formulate all this data, it's based on everything we've shared with the public. Everything we've talked about will be in that report. What they do with it, and how they separate it, and what they decide to do with the building to lease it, to tear it down, to whatever, that'll be based off of. I truly believe we couldn't cut this building up anymore into categories and pieces of pie to evaluate. We've probably gone overboard. If anything, but.
Okay, so we go ahead and score number one.
Well,
One
I'd like to just wait till Ms. Farben gets back.
Yeah,
okay.
Take a couple minute recess.
Hey, that's my one.
And we can do this by roll call. Roll call.
What I do with mine?
And you can have some of mine if you.
No,
I already drank out.
I brought a smart water. I didn't know what to do.
It's not working.
Go away.
Oh. Oh,
None of them, they.
let's stay one more. So much. Did it not work? I think you're hearing fans and stuff. You want to look at one? No. Put them off way by what possible.
Well, you'll find it after the meeting's over.
No, to go to my parents. So again, the key is, we're not all gonna agree, we're gonna agree to disagree.
Yep.
Everybody has an opinion, everybody has a point. You go with what you feel. Take the data and use it how you will. We're gonna take the data and combine it and get an average, then we'll share it with the select board.
Oh, let's just keep on with the vote.
Yeah, we're score number one right now.
Okay.
We'll have discussion on each item. Yeah, we'll score number one now.
All right,
Got it. It's fine.
so, we're just gonna score, by ourselves, so we'll go to the next question after that, okay, so everybody scored number one based on how they feel after the conversations we've had and where they think it fits. Okay. So everybody just score? Yep. All right, thank you, great, dialogue there. All right, number two is community input. So, anyone read off?
Yeah, so our explanation here is what is the feedback from the butters and the general public on the reuse or concerns about demolition or potential reuses. We voted to accept the scoring guidelines as that it's generally open to reuse, to score a spectrum of between 6 and 10. Mixed feelings depending on use, a mid-range spectrum of 2 to 5. And concerns regarding all reuse, a score of 0 to 1. And I would make the point that it appears based on question number 2 of the survey that approximately 2/3 of the voters, or the people taking the survey rather, had voted to reduce the building.
And I just want to inject also that the survey, I did some analytics on this, not the survey, I'm sorry, the petition that was presented to this committee. Many of these people live right around the Buzzell. And School Street has 11 homes, 15 signatures, keep it. Drury Lane has 9 homes, 7 signatures, keep it. Lumac Drive, 9 houses, 9 signatures, keep it. So this and the survey speak volumes to me. You guys score it however you want to score it, but I think that overwhelmingly in favor of keeping it, repurposing that building.
Overwhelming.
So we're scoring 2 now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody have the score?
Yes.
All right, Jane, want to read off number 3?
Number 3 relates to the cost to maintain utilities. The explanation is it feasible to continue paying year-round utilities to maintain the building based on the current condition? The scoring guidelines are as follows: costs absorbable in the current budget, score of 8 to 10. Reasonable budget adjustments are required, a mid-range score of 4 to 7. And major adjustments to the budget are required, score of 0 to 3. And I would just remind the committee that Mr. Chairman sent around, I think at the first or second meeting, utility costs related to electricity and gas.
And if you remember, operation of the senior center was basically 9 to 5. So, based on that, I would, and again, I didn't include that building running in my next year's utility budget, because it was unknown what was gonna happen. So at this point, I would have a slight increase to my utilities, but, we don't know how many hours it's gonna run, so I'm gonna assume it's gonna run the 8 hours similar to what it did before. So that the utility bills I shared would be, they're not huge numbers, but that would be the bump. Which I believe I'm gonna go off the top of my head and say 17 grand, but, so.
If you just want to do the FY24 stuff, that's probably the most accurate.
Yeah, that's all I do. So that's, so electricity for FY24 was, $8,600, about $8,657, but, and then oil was 11, like I said, between 17, 18 grand. You know,
That's utilities for the year.
yeah,
Oh, so we can score that, right?
yeah,
So
so
would that be absorbable? I mean, that like,
I don't have that in my budget today.
Okay.
So I would change it. And again, but I'm not talking, it's not an enormous adjustment to my fuel, or I buy 168,000 gallons of oil a year. and I wanna say 2 million kilowatt hours of electricity there. So when you break all that down, adding this building isn't a huge utility cost, upgrade.
Okay,
That's
thank you. 4 is done.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, number 5. Safety inspection is criteria number 5, the explanation. Did recent building inspections reveal the need for any substantial safety related capital improvements or repairs? Scoring guidelines are as follows. Reasonably low need for upgrades, a high range score of 8 to 10. A mid-range score of 4 to 7 to indicate moderate work required in the next 5 years. Or major work required in the short term, a low range score of 0 to 3.
So to you, both of you guys, is there anything unsafe about that building?
we have to define unsafe because we're to trigger the code stuff, so in theory, is there something that's,
Is there
dangerous to
nothing-
someone's health? There's nothing I'm aware of, there's no mold, there's, if there's asbestos encapsulator inside, have some kind of material, so I don't believe there's any health and safety violations or issues there. There's no insulation, so I don't have to worry about that.
Nothing that would have caused an imminent shutdown of the senior center had the seniors still
No,
been there, right?
There's, like I said, there would have been mechanical and pipe failure, which we're talking about in the other costs, so I don't want to skew this number by trying to call it a safety issue. You know,
Mr. Chairman, what about the structure? I mean.
structurally underneath the footings and things in that crawl space. It's definitely not ideal, but it's repairable.
But nothing.
But nothing-
caused the
it's
building to
not-
be condemned.
It's not, we wouldn't condemn the building for it today. So as much as it would be it would more of an upgrade as far as we did work to the floors, we'd probably go to those footings, go down 36 inches, put a footing and put a real, instead of 6 stack on rocks and bricks.
Yeah.
So it survived all the vibrations of the town hall being built. There was a little bit of vibration going on there, and ask the neighbors. So if it can survive that, I can't call it a safety. I won't sit here and call the building having safety issues. That's just my personal thing. Is it definitely needs upgrades? That's the next category. We already talked about 6. So
Okay, so we can score 5?
So with that, with what you just said with 5, is it okay to say reasonably low need for upgrades based on what you just said? Am I interpreting that correctly? Okay, good. Thank you.
Anything else?
Bruce,
Is that, let me know when you're ready.
Yep. All set.
you're ready? Cool. Thank you.
Okay, item number 6, modified facility condition index. We already spent some time discussing this. The explanation again is what is the ratio of total repairs over the next 5 years to the current building value? Reminding the committee that the current building value we are going to use is $546,500.
We should have all scored that already, right?
We talked about score.
Time to go.
Okay.
So everybody comfortable with this scoring on that?
I did not finish my scoring on that.
Okay.
I need some more input from, like, as soon as doing that, I would prefer to hear what, because I agreed with everything you said, I just didn't, I don't know what.
I mean, just to give you, if you're interested in where my
Yes.
mindset on that was, what I did is I took the total cost of 1.19 million.
Yeah.
And I subtracted the roof from that. And because I was really curious to see where the number would come up.
Yeah.
So I subtracted the roof from that and I subtracted the HVAC. And then I put in the 75,000 and I came up with just around the value of the building with those 3 items gone.
So like.
Yeah, and because I think all 3 of those items should be capital improvement items, they shouldn't be in any yellow. And I think they should be part of the capital improvement plan, and if you take those items and you move them out, you come up with a much more reasonable number. I mean, there's just so many things.
I'll just throw one more.
that-
I'll throw one more thing out. Speaking with Hal Spalding, the building inspector, would have 3 years to make all these improvements. And that's the building inspector, that's how many.
So Sue, was your ratio like a 1 to 1?
I gave the 5,
Okay, that's
that's what I gave is 5.
okay.
And again, it's how you interpret it.
It's how
Oh,
I.
it is, but I like
Absolutely.
it.
That's.
I mean, it helps me to hear.
Yeah, no,
And then decide what I believe.
I want everyone to be comfortable with the number they put down. I don't want to influence anyone, I don't want someone to influence me, we share data and information.
Yeah.
And then they go from there.
I'm not easily influenced. I like to hear.
You're a pushover, right?
And then, yeah. Give me a few.
You're a wallflower.
That.
Never say anything.
Let me know when you're ready.
Everybody
Ready?
ready? All right. Numbers.
We're getting close. Item number 7, public access and parking. The explanation here is that, does the existing site already have adequate parking for intended reuses, including a parking lot condition? The scoring guideline is yes, there's adequate parking, a range of 8 to 10 can be anonymous. Mid-range of 4 to 7 to indicate parking may be inadequate depending on the use. And a low range of scores 0 to 3, parking is likely inadequate. To remind the committee, I believe was there 40 parking stalls, Mr. Chairman?
Either 40 or
The
44.
existing building.
There's an extra balance of 38 parking spots per this
If you
report.
use both parking lots.
Without snow storage.
Yes, no, still.
Yeah.
So whatever the building's used for, there will be 38 spaces available for that building.
Based on what I come up with on that, when I shared that numbers, I talked to the school department, I talked to the high school principal, I talked to the town. I counted all the employees' cars. And then, I walked around the building that day and I was looking for whether a consultant or a tenant or someone in. Because every day there's someone in, the treasurer's office, every day there's people in, the assessor's office, town manager's office, constantly, it's a rotating door.
Yeah.
Clerk's office, a rotating door, so there's constant cars coming, so I try to count as many without going crazy and making assumptions that it's higher. When you look at parking, at the beginning of a school year, not every kid has their license. Middle of the school year, all the juniors get their license and the parking lot's jam packed.
Yeah.
And you hit car, and everybody's banging into each other.
Yeah.
So, but then, by May, the seniors leave.
gone.
and it opens up again, so it's an ocean wave every year, but when it's full,
April.
yeah, when it's full, it's pretty full. You know, and they drive better cars than I do.
Are any of the town hall employees remote?
No,
Okay.
there is no one remote that I am aware of, I don't know of anyone that, Jamie?
No.
No.
I would like to make a clarification, though, Mr. Chairman. So this question relates just to whether or not the existing Buzzell lot is adequate for an intended use. So not necessarily whether or not there's adequate parking for the town hall to.
But without this, we don't have the parking for the main building, so that's,
And the other thing I'd like to add is we do address parking lot condition in this question. Just as a reminder, we paved that parking lot last in 2014. To my assessment, that parking lot is in relatively decent shape still.
and whatever happens between the back of the new town hall and the existing pavement, I don't remember off the top of my head if that's all concrete, if that's, you know, asphalt there, I just don't remember. I truly haven't looked at the plan for the back of the building. But I would assume it's a combination of some asphalt there, leading into the asphalt that's there, with some concrete coming off the back. Well, it's in some landscaping. So,
Excuse me 1 second, so Jamie, what you just said, does that change anything about there are 38 spaces available for whatever that building is used for? Is that still true?
That's still trying.
Okay, that's all.
So the questions to me, and I guess I'm further confused by that. So how is that still true depending on how we're using the Buzzell? If we reuse the Buzzell, doesn't it depend on the use on how we reuse it, on whether or not there's adequate parking?
Well,
I'm,
it's this,
we
assumptions that
we require 286 spots. Okay. The front lot has 284 spots. Okay, the Buzzell has 40 spots, which gives us an extra 38 spots. So even if on a day when every single spot is taken, which will never happen, 2 spots will be taken up at the Buzzell.
got it.
In that part.
and to just, I didn't say,
Yeah.
you know, 8 of these are handicapped. because the handicap spots did get used and everywhere else. So I didn't break it apart. I just counted parking spots to parking spots.
Yeah.
Assuming that there is a percentage that have to be handicapped, but I just did count the spots. I didn't want to say, okay, there's 32 handicap spots, so that reduces this number, because not all, I just took number of
Yeah,
spots.
no, yeah.
So we can score 7?
Anybody need more time? Okay, moving on. Criteria number 8, historic value. The explanation is, does the building have relevant historic significance?
Yes.
The scoring guidelines. and this may or may not be effective. It's definitely going to be.
Your chance to shine.
So scoring,
First good school. The doctor, the dear doctor, took care of people in this community for many years. Donated the land to the town.
And it's in the historic. district.
And it's in the historic district.
Yes, it's also in a historic district.
A registered historic district, is that correct?
Yes,
Yes. thank you.
district is right.
just reading into the record.
Building is not, so district is.
Mr. Chairman, if I could read it, the scoring guidelines, just to be consistent into the record, a score of 8 to 10 is major historic relevance, a score of 4 to 7 is moderate. And a low end score of 0 to 3 would be little to no historic
Now,
relevance.
I'm just gonna say this for the record. It's again, interpretation of how you value it. The building itself is not a registered historic building. It isn't a historic district. It does have a story behind it based on all the stuff that's there shared, which is a part of Wilmington's history, which was important to me and will be part of the report. But it is your interpretation of what it is. So again, make that judgment based on what you feel the building is.
Anybody need more time? Number 9, accessibility, we have already scored as a group as a 2. So moving on from that. The last one, we made it, finish line here. This is a chance for other or general bonus points, essentially a miscellaneous, if you feel that there's something else that's not categorized by the former 9 criteria. That should be worth noting. So the explanation here is, does the building have relevant links with other buildings or obvious benefits to either reusing or raising? In other words, demolishing. Scoring guidelines here include an obvious benefit of reusing the building. You would score that between 8 and 10. Some reasonable reasons to keep it, a score of 4 to 7, or no additional justification to keep the building, score of 0 to 3. I would just ask on this one specifically that you list your notes and reasoning, or at least 1 or 2 of them, just so that we can have that, because it's very general in nature.
I would say something about that, like, I think it's relevant, the location of it, because it's close to the high school, it's close to the town building. And whatever the use is, it's, there are people close by to that would be useful. Like, if it were CTV, the interns, if it were, I don't know, just.
It's part of the historical district, in the town common
Yeah.
area, it's right next to the town hall, it's right next to a lot of municipal buildings, so I think that
And a
it
lot of-
ties in nicely with a lot of municipal uses. So I'm giving it a really good score.
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Without tipping your hand.
Just like that.
I'm playing poker with you.
I mean,
Let's go fish, got any 7s?
yeah, I don't think anyone of this panel is easily influenced by.
No, and again,
It's
that's,
knowledge sharing.
we're sharing everything, and again, we agree to disagree, and there's no hard feelings when it's all said and done.
could I just add something? So, Mr. Chairman, one item that came up after we voted on the scorecard, which I think is relevant, it should be mentioned at least for this particular category, it's the issue of zoning.
Issue of what?
Zoning.
Oh, yes.
So we've indicated this is an R20 zone. And I just want to remind the committee that there are certain uses that are allowed in an R20 zone.
But if we go back to what we said earlier, just put it on record. if we were talking municipal purposes and not leasing and other committees and things, then, you know, zoning is important, but
It's not relevant.
it's not as relevant. If we turn it into anything besides what falls under, R20, then it couldn't be done anymore. That's,
Well, there's always a matter of use zoning or.
yeah, it could, but it's not something that someone can go out and just do. It's not like you could say, you know, I don't know, I can't think of another purpose than the second two we follow.
Theater.
Yeah. The nightclub with the disco ball and the 70s music, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, we're taking some residents' opinion. There are exemptions to that zoning that he neglected to talk about because of.
I guess that's for interpretation of the select boards and everything else. And I've read it and I interpret it the way I want to read it. And anyone else can read it. I actually believe that it, the way it's stated, it can't be, but that's not I'm not the final say on it. So if you're asking my opinion, I truly believe the R20 is residentially zoned and it says right in it that memberships, groups couldn't use it. That doesn't mean it can't be rezoned. That doesn't mean it can't, other things can't happen. My interpretation of my opinion, and everyone here can interpret it the way they want to, so.
He's leaving out the exemptions that exist.
That's fine, again,
And through you, Mr. Chair. The selectmen will get this report and no doubt we'll spend some time talking about it in public and there will be public comment there. And I'll tell you, I'm going to be there as a citizen to voice my opinion on what should happen with this building. So I encourage you, that's where, you know, you gotta put your money down there.
and again, I appreciate any time that anyone's put into it, because it is an important decision. Like I said at the beginning of this, we have one shot of, once it's torn down, it's gone. So,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other data we could have put together, any other way we could slice this up to get as much data as we can to make a recommendation. Again, we don't have to agree, we can agree to disagree, and there'll be different sides of this, different opinions from each person of where it should go, how it should go. But I think we met our charge as far as every topic you could talk about to give a report. What they do with that report and how they break it down will be down to them. But I think we can't get any more community input than we've gotten. I think the community's been very well attended and shared a lot of their information. People brought knowledge we didn't have from the community, shared stories from the community. So I think all those things together will be in a report. A lot of the selectmen came to these meetings, have been advised if they've asked questions. So we've done our job when it comes to this bill. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a need to vote as a committee. I don't know what everyone else thinks to say, hey, it's a 4-4 vote or a 5-3 vote or whatever it is. We've supplied the data, so I don't know if our vote matters. I don't know how anyone else figures. You know, we could vote, we could have 4-4, we could have 5-3, we could have 6-2. I think our data and our score sheets, summaries of that speak, but I don't know how other people feel, and I don't want to be that.
I think our vote should be taken to accept the report or to finalize the report.
Yes.
It's ready to go. And if we can pass that around, and not deliberate, on email, but if we can pass that around with comments, for Jamie.
So just so everybody knows, what I do when I send things out to everybody, I send the email to me and I blind copy everyone else.
Yeah.
That protects us under our open meeting law. What that does is you can't respond to the group and it's not deliberation. So if you send something back and like, if someone says, oh, these minutes are wrong, I talk to Serby, she adjusts them, I resend them out. But I don't share with anyone else who it was or whatever. I take their information, I gotta upgrade that. But, so if I send this out, it's going to be for your review. If you see something typos or some number that's off, you share that back, we make the adjustment, we resend it out, but we talk about it here in front of the public.
And so part of our charges, do we just send the data to the select board or do we actually make a recommendation?
So if I could just opine on that, I guess I was under the impression that we were going to vote individually on it. Doesn't mean we have to. One way to look at it is once we average out the scorecard, kind of is a vote. Because the way I look at it, just in theory, if it's a score of 0 to 100, if it comes in at a flat 50, it's the same as a split.
Can I read the charges? Okay.
Sure.
Can't hear one up, right? Charge to the committee for building reuse project. Number 1, conduct an assessment of each building to determine current conditions.
So they don't know.
Number two, investigate needs of town departments, determine if internal reuse is merited. The town manager was here at the last meeting, we did that. Solicit input from other town boards and committees. We've done that. We've had selectmen here, everybody here. Engage community stakeholders and public input through open public forums. We've done that. Make preliminary determination as to potential costs for either reuse or demolition if appropriate. We've done that. We've done that. Review possible uses for buildings and or land for municipal purposes. And I think that when we put the survey results in the report, that will be punctuated. Maybe the top 4 or 5 results from the survey for each of the questions, right? And then evaluate all potential uses and make final report to selectmen within 6 months of the. So that's our charge.
We're technically right around 6 months, and we've had the conversation with the town manager that, you know, the first 2 months, we had no roadmap, we didn't know what we're doing. So,
Yep.
I think we're well within that. And, you know, if, I know a lot of it goes on Jamie because he's formatting the report for us. Once we have that and send it out, I don't have a problem doing a vote and seeing where we end up as a committee. Again, I don't, if we agree.
It's important to get all the data that we, you know, and look at it holistically. Especially now that we've done the scorecard, and then I think we should discuss it and see if we wanna, you know, make a recommendation or if we wanna just like submit.
I think that our recommendation should stop at whether the building stays up or gets torn down.
Right.
I think we stop there.
Right.
And we can vote on that. I mean, I'm not opposed to voting.
I think it's another tool that the select board can use to make their informed decision. I think voting doesn't hurt.
All right, so, and again, I'm fine with whatever the will of the committee is. And if you think about it, once we all review it. And
Let's wait for the results to come back from.
And then we come, in our next meeting, I'll make it an agenda item that everyone reviews the report, we talk about it, and we vote on whether that's what we want to send to them, or vote some changes, based on the certain change, we do that, and then we'll vote, you know, all in favor, keep it, all in favor, tear it down.
So just so we're all aware, in the report, there'll be a draft sentence in there that says, or it'll be probably the last sentence of the report on what the vote was, and I'll just exit out. So
If you want their attention, you want to put the first.
And I would also suggest that, for, you know, open meeting requirements that these scorecards, you don't have to put your name on it if you don't want anybody to know who you are, but they're part of the public records. I think we should make them part of the minutes for the next meeting.
What I will do is,
You know,
if you don't put your name on it, if you, I can post them online without anyone's personal name on it. And I'll have them all put up there, so I'll collect them all tonight so we can do that. And when I post everything else I shared with you tonight, all these other graphs and things, this will go up there. And again, no one has to sign it.
Yeah.
And I can make a signature, and then people can see where people voted.
So, I have notes on it.
Yeah, and if you don't care if your name's on it,
Okay.
I have notes.
you may not care if your name on it. I'm just
I think
saying.
my notes are electrical.
Yes.
And
And again, I can get,
Be able to read mine if I wrote down.
but I mean, if you guys, it makes public record even more that, you know, we shared all those things. But we just,
But we're kind of in a way of voting, so I just
again, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
It shows where, again, we don't sign them, we do sign them, who cares? I make my opinion pretty vocal.
I don't mind it.
And
Just one thing for the report. Can you include these 7 charges? Sure. Maybe I'll put in front of the report,
That's a good
so
idea.
we remember why we're here.
Yeah.
And the selectmen remember why we did this.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I would also make the recommendation that everyone on this scorecard strike out the box that says overall building reuse viability score of 10. Because
Oh,
the
yeah.
spreadsheet it automatically added what was in there, so that's no longer relevant.
Yeah, that's true. So, thank you. So if everybody wants to, and they're, I'm not even gonna look at them, I'm just gonna file them. And I we'll file them, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the one with
What's that?
comment.
No, that, what you,
Right.
Yeah, why?
when I get public comments, I really shouldn't have allowed the public to speak before that, and get full with the board, and I've been trying to keep it open.
We're not voting on what they.
We're not voting on whether to keep it or not. I don't have a problem.
Not the boss.
I don't think anyone else,
We're only voting on the viability of the building.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do with what happens to it, right? I mean, I'm not.
I'm fine, I'm good with it, right? again, it's 1/9 of the vote. So, if you think about it, so we're sharing all the data, we're not the ones tearing it down, we're not the ones saving it, we're the ones bringing the data to them. And we all have, it's 1/9 of the opinion, and I don't think that's gonna go up. If we were voting to say yay or nay, then you
And
Inspector General would probably say that your,
The Attorney General.
Attorney General would say, that it's conflict of interest because of, so, but I think, putting in scorecard, if anyone else thinks differently,
This part is.
just let me know. I think, and your input is as valuable as anybody else who's on all this stuff, and I made that clear earlier, and I just wanna make sure that we stated that.
So congratulations, everybody. We filled out the scope.
All right, so next on the agenda, now it's your shot, is, public, and again, thank you everyone for this marathon.
So first of all, thank you for letting me ask you the question earlier. And thank you to all of you. This was great. I've sat through the long public process and this was a really good one. And you guys were very good with everything. It was great. And so I think, I can only speak for myself on behalf of my group. We really appreciate all the work you guys put in. A couple of points I just want to make. One, just, I know you already did your scorecard, but just thinking the final report. The cost, I know the money is already in the budget for taking down the building. And that you can't just take that money and hand it, but it's gonna go, it won't get used, it will go back into the town office and then it can be reused. So somehow that should be taken into account. If the building stays up, the cost of remodel, there is a $90,000 savings. Or 80, whatever that number is in the current, whether it gets used here or not, the town will still save that money by not knocking the building down. So I think that should be in the reports. Because that gets lost.
I'm not sure that there is $90,000. I think they spec'd it out.
It's in the,
There's a cost, there's a cost,
it's in the contingency.
Okay,
So
so it's,
so the contingency that it's not spent if we don't tear it down, we'll end it back in the general fund and so it'll stay where it is for a certain amount of time, for a year or two, in case there's other things.
And there's quite a bit of money. We do have, the town hall is coming in under budget, so there'll be quite a bit of money coming back into the general fund from the town hall. We can't earmark that for anything.
but this specifically, if you keep it up, saves that money.
Well, again, I'm gonna spend 1.2 million or spend 80. I'm gonna tear it down to 80,000, or I'm gonna spend 1.2. It's just, when you say you save it, it's just, it's just all this, how much you spend. Well, I'll save 80, but I'll spend 1.2 saving. Oh, I'll save 500.
I'll
save
500. 500,000 and you save 80, so now you don't have to spend it in 420.
Again, it's how you want to spend it, yes.
I'm trying to wait, and then the benefit.
Apple, orange,
Keeping it
pineapple.
And then the other thing, just about the zoning. I haven't, but I do, one of my members spoke here and he does this for a living. And there are, according to him, there are exemptions for the R20. And so for the current use to be able to be continued to be used for a certain period of time. So people should really look at that before you automatically take.
We're not dealing with the zoning issue at all.
Nobody got brought up yet to take it in.
I don't get it. It's a data point that what our report should have to the selectmen is, it's absolutely a data point that should be shared.
Right, but it should be, but that data point should be based on all of the facts.
Again, I can go back to this, I don't wanna get in a debate, but I can go back to the survey and say, there were people at the senior center telling seniors what to fill out. So our survey is technically skewed, but I'm gonna still supply the survey.
They should.
Can I make a comment about that too, though? I would imagine too, that for all of the things, people told their own groups what to fill out. I don't. I don't know.
This was something from another thing.
I'm just saying, so when we're talking about data, the data is skewed on the survey. Because people went on multiple times, multiple devices, which, whatever, it's, again, it was about collecting the data, so if you look at data, if you look at someone going over someone's shoulder, now write this in your note, now do this, I don't think we need to do that. So, I don't know, no, I'm just saying, all the data is data, and we're gonna share it all, but to say that one thing's less important than the other.
Your views on the zoning, I think, may be well founded, but maybe that's a discussion we can have in front of the select board.
Yeah.
I just wanted.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
I wanted to put it out there in the public, so it's out there.
Yep.
Other than that, thank you very much.
No.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, and all the input you guys had. Anyone else? No? Okay, so, quick synopsis, we're gonna take all the scorecards, we're gonna do, an average score, fill out the scorecards, I'll post everything to the website. We'll share the average scorecard with everyone on the committee. Jamie will continue working on finalizing the report. Scorecard's obviously part of that. And then our next meeting, my assumption is the two agenda items would be to, review the report and discuss it. We talked about having the vote.
Yep.
And then that will be our final, piece of information to then present it to the select board and town manager. Do I have that right?
Yep.
Okay, our next meeting is July 16th. That will accomplish everything we had as a goal. So, if everyone's comfortable, I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
Second, yes.
All in favor? I'll do a roll call, just to make it clear. Suzanne Clarkin. Michelle Keeney.
Yes.
Dennis Kelly, yes. Odette.
Yes.
Jamie McGowan.
Yes.
Paul Maloney.
Yes.
Tricia Romano.
Yep.
Chair Van
Yes.
Suzanne Sullivan.
Yes.
It's unanimous. Thank you. And again, thank you for everyone's input. This was great.